Greetings. Our Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 2629, and this is Thursday Bible Talk. Well, we're going to be looking at something a little bit different today. Um, Actually, I got started on this subject due to a recent Bible study that I was doing for myself. And so, what we're going to look at is I've titled it Trusting the Promises of God. And I've selected one particular passage, which I'll get to in a minute. But I want to start out by saying I have, over the course of time, given ample evidence of why the King James Bible is the only Bible for English-speaking people. That's critical. You always got to have that last phrase on there, English-speaking people. If you're Spanish and you don't speak English, then you need their version, which would be based on the Texas Receptus. And they do have one. The Spanish people do. Other languages have their own Bible based on the Texas Receptus. It's for them. But for English-speaking people such as myself and you, this is the Bible. But there is another reason for trusting the King James. This is the promises of God. Someday I may take a deep dive into this subject, but here is one particular reason that stands out. And I chose the passage of Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 through 10. Most of you are familiar with that. We have a very famous promise within this. Now I'm going to focus on verse 10. Now here it is. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Now, most of you know what the terminology here means, so I'm going to go over it just in case there's somebody watching that doesn't understand. Some people have taught that the term storehouse does not mean the church, it means something else. And in the Old Testament, the storehouse was a particular building, a particular area where they stored food. Usually people would donate food, or might even be living food at the time. They nearby the temple in the town of Bethlehem, they had sheep. And you also had other villages and towns around there that supplied supplies to the temple. So the storehouse had a very literal meaning. But to us today, this promise, storehouse, refers to the church. This is what God has set up for us as Christians. He has given us the church. We no longer worship in a temple or a synagogue. We use the local church. And so, so you cannot take the Old Testament temple and everything and just say it's been replaced by the church. They're two different things. But in the case of the storehouse, in case of this promise, it is the best way to think of this is a church's treasury, the church's bank account, if you will. Secondly, we talk about let's see, the windows of heaven. The windows of heaven is not a literal thing up in heaven that there's a window there. That's not what that's talking about. That is talking about God's treasure house, or treasure chest, if you will. God has blessings that he has for us, for you and for me. And this is what that is referencing to. The windows of heaven. He will open up the sky, so to speak. Just as the rain comes down and nourishes the earth, so he has blessings, abundant blessings for you and for me. Maybe some different for you than for me, some different for me than for you, but he has blessings far more than we could ever handle. And so but he wants to pour them out on us. And so he makes us a promise. And this promise keys on one particular phrase. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. But the whole thing comes right down to these two terms. Prove me. Two words. I am not going to compare version to version on this verse. I've looked them up. There are some differences of translation. The word prove in another translation, they came up with test. Well, I can kind of think of that as a weak translation. Prove involves testing. There's no doubt about that. But I think it goes beyond just testing. It goes deeper and broader. And the thing is, it's testing is you in modern terminology is you have a test and you fill it out, take it, you're either right or wrong. In this one, in prove me, God is saying, here's my promise. Take a step of faith on it and see if I'm not good, faithful to my word, that I will do what I have said I will do. Goes far beyond just simple testing. It includes it, but it goes beyond it. But there is a greater issue here. God has made promises. I've just read you one. Why should you believe him? Think about that. Why should you believe God? Now, you may have a King James Version Bible in your hand. Look at that Bible. Do you trust that Bible? Now, if it's not King James, it's got errors in it. I've demonstrated that in the past. If you do have King James Version, there are no errors in it. Misconceptions, people have misconceptions. Those can be disproven. They may have misunderstandings. Those can be corrected, but there are no errors. So of those two, whichever one you happen to have, this is a good question. If you have the King James Version Bible in your hand, then you got something that you can rely upon, that you can trust. Well, why should you trust the other versions? If they're not right on some issues, how do you know they're right on this one? So if you're reading a book that has errors in it, you may have every reason to doubt any promises made in it. We know that the other versions are rife with errors. Again, I've shown this in the past. We also know that the KJV is error-free, except for printing errors that may pop up once in a while. Their spellings may be different than what we have today, but they were correct at the time they were written. So this is all something I'm kind of refreshing your memory of things I've talked about in the past. But here's the problem. Why should you believe God's promise in a book that has errors in it? Errors cast doubt. Errors lessen the reliability of that book. On the other hand, when you hold in your hands an error-free book, such as the King James Version Bible, then you have reason to trust the promises God has made. Trust is essential if you are going to have any confidence in the promise. So let's look at the promise. God says, prove me. Wow. He is making a promise to us and invites us to put himself under our microscope. God doesn't have to do that, folks. He is God. But he willingly puts himself out that way and says, here, prove me. Here's my promise. Prove me right. Prove me wrong. Put me under your microscope. Examine me from every angle you can think of. Prove me. When you have a trustworthy Bible at hand, you can respond to that invitation with confidence. So we look at the promise and take God up on it. We begin to tithe. Well, what happens? God opens the windows of heaven. Will you experience this immediately? Probably not, but I am sure some people would have. In my case, God's invitation wasn't acted upon immediately, but eventually I realized it was a true promise and I began tithing. I wasn't immediately flooded with money and financial success, but my confidence in Him and in His Word kept me doing my part that involved tithing. It's interesting. Today is a day in which I'm going to be doing that very thing. Um, it varies because of different things in my financial life. I have different days in which I do my tithing, and I like to do my tithing immediately after a certain amount of. But for instance, I get at my age, I get Social Security, so when that comes in, that's one of my first things I do. So this is Thursday. It came in yesterday, and I'm going to be doing it today. I have other things going on in my life, so I have different things set up. What that There's no basic principle I want to teach there because it's different for different people. You get paid on different days. You get paid on different cycles. All sorts of things that are different. The point is, you should tithe on it, and the sooner the better. Now, today I can say that God has proven to me His faithfulness many times over. And because He has kept His promise in this area, I am also trusting Him in other areas. Isn't that amazing? When God proves Himself in this area, we suddenly look, oh, wait a minute. There's another promise. I can trust Him. Oh, here's another promise. I can trust Him here. Well, here's another one. And we start finding that out, just that one promise. And it doesn't have to be the tithing one. I'm using it today. But you find out he's reliable in one area, you can go in others. But the very first time you trust him on area, you trust him based on the fact that of the book that you're holding in your hands. If it is not a trustworthy book, how are you going to trust him? Because you're not sure whether it's him or not. Saying that. Trusting God when you grow up or you grew up in a world where God is mocked and often ignored was a very difficult thing for me. But I had my KJV Bible and had complete trust in its reliability. So I stepped out in faith, trusting that God would keep his promises. He proved himself and therefore also proved once again the reliability of his word. But it all began with me trusting his word as revealed to me in the King James Version Bible. By the way, it was the power of his word in the King James Version Bible that convicted me of my sin and convinced me to turn my life over to him, thus causing me to ask him into my heart in the first place. Trust is all important. The King James Version Bible is the only trustworthy Bible for English-speaking people. And I will continue to believe that and continue to practice that in my life because I have complete confidence in my Lord and Savior and in his word. You have that kind of confidence in a different version? Fine. I think you're wrong. I think it's a broken reed, but I'm not going to challenge you on that. But I would encourage you to check out the King James, especially when you consider the errors. The errors as accused in the King James that can be easily disputed, easily proven to be wrong. Those errors. Or look at the errors that are in the Bible you have. If you don't have the King James, those are there. And they leave out verses. They leave out passages that are in the King James. And so you have to make a choice. You cannot have different versions and say they're all the Word of God. There's only one. You pick the one. I think that evidence is overwhelming that it's the King James Version Bible. Well, that's it for today. I hope this has been formative, encouraging, and inspiring to you. And if you don't have the King James, I would encourage you to get one and start reading it and studying it. You say, well, I can't understand the language. Learn it. You had it when you started a job out, you had to learn the terminology and everything of that job. When you go to a foreign country, quite often you will learn, see at least basics of that language so that you can communicate to people. You can do it. Children do it all the time. And so that is something that it's not really a valid excuse. Let's put it that way. You have a great day. I hope this has been informative to you and helpful. And this is brought to you by TNR Independent Books, an indie publisher, a Christian indie publisher. You have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.